All right, here we go. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jorge Sanchez. I'm conducting my capstone presentation for Keiser University. This is a requirement for graduation for your bachelor's degree. So, good morning, Dr. Renzi, distinguished guests, Mary, Teresa, and Roberta. Today, my presentation is a path to eliminate police brutality. Next slide. Some of the topics you guys can see on the screen. Introductions, trending events, cultural impacts, police culture, training changes, leadership, summation, and references. So, police brutality. So, let's talk a little bit about police brutality. So, what is police brutality? So, I'm sure you guys have either hear about police brutality or seen on the TV. The police brutality is an excessive, unnecessary force used by police officers when they arrest civilian personnel. So, and with the police brutality, this includes tools as batons, they have tasers, they have verbal abuse, they have other things that they're being used for arresting personnel. Next slide. So with the police brutality and excessive force, it is almost similar, but it's a little bit different. So the excessive force, sometimes it is according to the behavior of the person that you're arresting. So in other words, some police officers, they have to use excessive force in a way to restrain an individual. So with that being said, that is not police brutality, but it's excessive force. Just want to make a little bit, clear what is excessive force and police brutality. That way we don't confuse that. Next slide. So some of the levels of force used by police officers, we have verbal restraint. They scream at you and they say, hey, get on the ground, you're under arrest. That's the verbal restraint. Physical restraint is when you put your hands behind your back and they handcuff you. Then we have the less lethal force that is utilized when they use the pepper sprays and tasers, stuff like that. And the lethal force, which is the other one, is caused by the individual when they're either fleeing or they're resisting arrest, so they have to use some kind of force or tools to prevent the individuals from fleeing from the police officers. Next slide. Now we had some of the cases that happened before, back in the days. We have Rodney King. That was a major incident that happened in 1992 in LA. So that's where actually it started everything moving as far as the police brutality. So I'm sure everybody heard about it. I don't want to just go and review everything with that, but that was one of the main incidents that happened before. And actually he died in California in a swimming pool. So it wasn't really, because of the actions or things that he had before from the police officers. Next slide. So we have another incident with Michael Brown. Michael Brown Jr., he was an African American. He was actually fatally shot by police officers. He was 28 years old. The police officers that shot him, the white police officer at Ferguson Police Department, he was shot multiple times, and then 12 bullets, and 6 of them were actually shot in the front, like either in the chest or whatever. But that was another big issue. Next slide. And Eddie Gardner, he in 2014, that was from Staten Island, New York. Another police officer, he hauled him with a choke hold on the head, and then actually 15 seconds later he died. So as we can see now, this incidents are becoming more like every day now. We have more incidents related to that that are being seen kind of normal, every day. So just think about those things. So another thing now, we are going into the training events. So this the training event is part of the police culture. So what do we need to do in order for all this to stop? So there needs to be a change within the police departments. So there has to be a change as far as how to train officers to restrain personnel, to not abuse their power, and to be more less lethal as far as police brutality when they arrest an individual. So the statistics now, in 2010 there were 996 police shootings across the states, and then in 2019 also there were 239 police shootings. So that's a lot of incidents that happen from the police department. So we got to start doing things that can change the perspective that individuals has for police officers. So instead of creating a culture that is deterring people to liking police officers, so we have to start doing something that is more progressive, that people tend to be more open with police officers, and they can help us to either arresting an individual or anything like that. Next slide. So speaking of the cultural impacts, like I said, they have to be taken in new directions for that. The negative impacts, they influence a lot with the communities. Our communities and the media, when they record, police officers conducting arrest, they're recording everything. So not just because we have body cameras or things like that, but police and individuals, private citizens, they do record. They have the right to do it. So whenever you're gonna arrest somebody, you gotta be aware that you're being watched for that. So in order for the public to have more trust for the police officers, we have to gain their support and respect. So anyway, all those things, they have to start changing. And we have to start doing some more program and evaluation from police officers, different police agencies, to make sure all the officers are complying with regulations, so we can be more help to our community. Next slide. The same, speaking of the same police culture, so as a result of the police culture, we have to understand there's different values and mechanisms that they are currently, that dominate the police departments. So in some of the police department, it, for the most part, is a male-dominated institution, where they have a lot of secrecy within the police officers. And the thing is, all those are being, as far as the blue wall of silence with the police officers, where they don't, like, if I'm a police officer conducting another business with another police officer, and he see me doing something wrong, he might just keep it quiet instead of talking with the supervisors, and get you in trouble for that. So the blue wall of silence, that it's something that has to be changed as well. So we have to get more police officers to being more proactive with our institution and with the values of the United States of America, and with our organizations. So next slide. Some of the effects that we have on police officers. Well, there's a tradition of culture and the use of force within the police department. So And the thing is, when we deal with the public, because the police actually deal with the public all the time. That's one of the main factors of being a police officer. So there's officers that they, like if they go to a new police station and they go on patrol, so they already, if they come in from another station, they have a different mentality what they had before that this new police department has. So the mixed feelings and cultural police, the police culture that he had, he's adopting a little bit more of his culture from the previous institution, from the previous police department. So he has to start learning how to be more, to cope with the new police department, with the partner, you know, telling him exactly what's going on, how he feel. So all those things is good to take in consideration as you know, adopting new culture from another police department. Next slide. So another thing with the with that is we have minorities, we have females, we got Latinos, we have, you know, other genders and other culture background. So the thing is, when we have female, the females are, when they have a female come into the police station, so they treat him with prejudice and bias. So they don't really like to have a female. If I'm a police officer, a male police officer, and going into the patrol, I'd rather have somebody that is a male, because we think that males are more, you know, they're more strong and more, you know, they can coerce somebody just with, you know, talking with them, that having a female, giving a command for somebody to stop or things like that. So this is how they think in some of the institutions. So the females are, the minorities are, they obstaculize how they can progress within the institution. So they are being treated differently, and like I said, part of the main idea is to change the tradition that we have with the department. So we have to start integrating more, welcome, you know, this females into our institution, so they can feel that they can work and we can work as a team. So next slide. All right, so the police culture effects. So the effects on the public. What do we, you know, present to the public when they see, you know, the police department doing all this arrest and acting, you know, chasing vehicles and stuff like that? So the first thing that we have to do is being transparent. So transparency is like, if we do something, make sure everybody that we know that they're watching, they see that we're conducting our business professional, we're treating people with dignity and respect, whether we're putting somebody, you know, in our police patrol or we arresting him. There's always kind of ways to do things that citizens won't have that discouragement with the police officers. So that way, you know, we can, you know, bring all those offenders to justice, and I don't think anybody in the community will, you know, will say something about why we're arresting somebody that's just committed a crime. So we have to make sure that, you know, the police officers and the public are, you know, we work together with that. So because we serve them. So next slide. So keep talking about the police cultural changes, imperatives within the department. So our department there, they have to be entrenched with the police culture. So there's a lot of values and behaviors, training, professionalism, but all these changes, they have to start with the leadership. So, and why we said that they have to start with the leadership, because first of all, the leadership, the police chief, and, you know, whoever it is there, they are the one that write all the policies that have to be enforced by the department. So if there's you know, expectations that they have for police officers to comply with rules and regulations, they have to start doing it among themselves. So that way, you know, the police officers are not gonna be talking about, well, they're telling us to do this, but then on the other hand, they don't do it. So they have to start learning how to comply with the policies as well. So if I'm the chief of police, maybe I was like riding on my car and then he was speeding. I'm a patrol, police officer stopped the vehicle. I didn't know who it was. So when I stopped and I realized that it was the chief of police or somebody else, that is, you know, one of the big shots from the police department. And then, you know, sometimes what it is like, you give them a break. Oh, it's you, all right, sir, well, never mind, so just, you know, be safe, go home. But we have to start, like I said, all this has to start with the leadership. If they break the rules, so the people's gonna break the rules. So we have to be fair with everybody. Next slide. So as far as the police culture, there are some beliefs that they have within the police department. So they think they're the only real crime fighters. They're not. We have, you know, other, you know, officers or other law enforcement agencies that they're not police, but they also protect the our people. They think that no one else understands it. Yeah, there's a lot of people understand it, but you know, sometimes they figure that no one understands it because they need to get more counselings and, you know, with the you know, doctors and psychiatrists and stuff like that, so they can realize why they think that, you know, people don't understand them. So loyalty to colleagues, that actually brings that issue that, you know, if you're riding with me in the patrol and then, you know, something happened and, you know, maybe I shot somebody and then you're like, well, I'm not gonna tell anybody, so you're being, you know, you're loyalty with them, but you know, you're breaking the rules too. So you have to understand that there's things that you have to stipulate as far as the friendship, or, you know, you're being a police officer because you want to do your job and help the people, not just like trying to cover somebody that committed either a crime or your partner got in trouble for something else. So you have to speak out and do that. The other thing was the thing that the war against crime cannot be won without bending the rules. Well, all rules are being bent, but you're not gonna bend them because that's what you're there for. You are there so you can enforce the rules and regulations. So if you start breaking the rules, you should be out of the police department. So the other one is the members of the public are basically unsupportive and unreasonable demanding. But this is not what it is. The public always asks for something that they can get support from the police officers and the police department, but not necessarily they're asking for unreasonable demands, but it's something that they believe. This is just the beliefs on the police culture. And then the other one was the patrol work is the pits. So, but it's not. So patrol, when you're doing the patrol, you know, you go into your areas and stuff like that. So it's like I said, you have to try to obey and, you know, enforce regulations. Somebody breaking the law, you know, running a red light, things like that. It's different than just like being in your patrol, but you're doing, you know, something that is productive that can save people's lives too. Next slide. So some of the changes, like I said, everything has to start with the leadership. So they have to present everything clear. They have to be concise. They have to be, that everyone understands the policies within the department. That way there's not conflicts that, okay, yeah, so they said something like that, and then the expectations from the police officers are different because they don't understand what they're saying. So, you know, setting the standards and prevent that, you know, escalating in situation where the use of force is required. So they have to be, you know, clear that all those expectations that we have within the department, they have to be in compliance with our policies. So, and it's not really difficult to implement. It's just like we have to be part of a good teamwork, and understand how the process works with the rules and regulations. Next slide. So another thing that we were talking about, recruiting. So when we're talking about recruiting, everything, we go in and do a background investigations and, certain individual. So, and they go to, different evaluations, but the thing is, there's different evaluations that they not really do it within the department. Unless it's, we suspect that, you have some problems, mentally unstable, so we have to go in and get psychiatrists to go in and do, different or deep investigations on you. And then either, we have the fingerprints investigation. So there's other departments, they don't really pass all the information for the police officer. So you might be leaving in, maybe you leave in 2 or 3 different states before, but when you were a minor or when you were under 21, there's some information that is not being passed out because you were a minor at then. So maybe there's a secret on you that we should know about it, but we don't. For some reason, the laws they protect individuals for that. But this is where, as far as the recruiting force, it's hard to understand how emotional you are, because if we don't know the background that you have, you're only 22 years old and came to apply for a police officer position. So you only went over a couple years after you were 18 years old, and we don't know what the rest of you was. So it's hard for us to understand. So when we get different dangerous situations that impact decisions for you to take in patrols or chasing, so we have to learn a little bit more about you, and to see what kind of police officers you're going to be in acting with the public, and see if you're capable to do it. If it's not, then we have to either send you somewhere else, or we're just not going to take you in our department. You have to look for other institutions that they don't require too many background investigations or stuff like that with the police officers. So you decide to be a police officer, think about those things, and if you think that you're have the ability to comply and being in situations where your life is in danger, so that you don't have any issues with that, we're still going to require certain the doctors, they're going to do check on you, your mental is stable and stuff like that, so to make good decisions. Go ahead, next slide. Continuing with the recruitment, so we can really predict anything as far as how or what kind of police officer you're gonna be at. But there was some they emphasized in some special forces training that they did in Switzerland, that it actually in the aspects of personality, the history, motivation, socializations, and all that. And if you had like disciplinary actions that when you were in school, or whether at work or anywhere else, so all those things are being evaluated for you as far as medical and professional psychiatrists and stuff like that. So all those things, they are big factor for you or for us for discharging you from the force. That way we don't have to deal with you for bad conduct within the department, and having more incurring to liabilities for the department, which is increasing in payments, payoff for lawsuits and stuff like that, because you're the way that you're dealing with the public. So anyway, this is a lot of impact it does to the community as well, because the people pay their taxes, the taxes pay the police officers to be in the force. Go ahead, next slide. So the changes must affect all aspects. So When I say the all aspects means that, everything. Whether, policing on the street, whether we do, um, chasing or anything. So everything has to be, very clear. That way there's a lot of transparency that the public, is evidently seeing that you guys we being more, proactive with them. So it has to be very evident to the public that we're conducting ourselves in a way that we or they feel that we're approachable, and that they can talk to us without having the fear to say, hey, oh no, I'm not gonna get close to him because, I might get arrested or, something like that. So the mentality that, the public has a little fear, when they talk to the police officers. Either, they come to you or they just like don't want to get close to you because they feel fear that if they say something to you, you might end up, arresting them or say something that is, not polite. Go ahead, next slide. So the other thing is that the police killings are on the rise. So there's a lot of activists with the public that they're trying to demand police officers to become better as using the police, the force, the excessive force. So in other words, de-escalating all the conflicts that they have with the public, the police and the public. So, and like I said, we already talked about that before, that, how we're gonna interact with the people when we're arresting them. So we have to make sure that we use the necessary force to, restrain some individuals, and not like, we just stop you and gonna hit you with a baton and you're gonna go down on the ground, and, so it's something that we have to start, changing so we can protect our citizens and make sure that they're not being abused from other police officers. Go ahead, next slide. So there's a lot of unreasonable things happens within the department, and part of that is some cases like with the Supreme Court, Graham versus Counter and stuff like that, that it's some levels of force are being accepted within the department. So in those circumstances, we have to, everything comes to a debate, and the social media actually is the one that always, pass the information to the public. So they give in the information that is not really what it is, but they make it seem like that's what it is, but it's not. So it's you might have the intention, or you have the intent to kill somebody, but maybe in the video it shows a different way. So all those things that have to be taken in consideration for that. Next slide. So we also have, there's a lot of lessons that we learn at work. Whether you work as a janitor, you work in the police department, you work anywhere else. So everything that you acquire all the training that you acquire when you're in your institution, when you work as a mother, father, whatever, all those things, they play a big factor when you're working as a police officer. Because if you were, you brought up good with your parents, so you're gonna be a good police officer because you have good role models like your parents were. So with that being said, that helps a lot with the how to treating individuals as well. The other thing is your education background. Your educational background is very important, because then you have ways that you can actually socialize and making your network, so you can you learn how to talk and give the people better understanding of our culture in the police department. So all those, it's good things that we can do for changes and innovations. So and then that way we can control different situations that occur every day in the police life. Go ahead, next slide. So the thing, keep going about the training changes and innovation. So there's the police, within the police department, there's some duties that requires that we have to de-escalate situations where use of excessive force is required, but if we can also deal with certain things that either physically or sometimes we have to deal with drug addicts, and we have to deal with gang members and stuff like that. So in order for us to de-escalate the situations, we have to be trained really well. Because if you just came to the department, like I was saying before, you're new in the department and you go into a situation that there's gang members and stuff like that, and just the first time over there, you're gonna be like, oh, I don't know what to do. So you gotta understand there's a lot of situations they're gonna occur to you, and like the school shootings and stuff like that. So all those things, they have to be. You gotta know that when you choose this profession, you gotta be like willing to comply with the role as police officers. So next slide. Okay, so in 2015, there was the President's Task Force 21st Century Policing, which was a recommendation for better training for police officers, including crisis response in things where like people robbing banks and stuff like that. So all those where we can try and de-escalate those situations. So we gotta have the right skills. So the President Task Force was to prevent those things. So we have to prevent this conflict, and we have to use quiet tones. And when we talk to people, instead of screaming, "Hey, get your hands down!" So you have to be like more, "Hey, sir," try to talk to them, well, and then making comply without making them feel really uncomfortable. I know it's kind of hard for some police officers, but in reality, this is how it's supposed to be. So the public and the community will have a little bit more support. We'll have more support from the police, from the public to the police, and start regaining that trust from them. Next slide. So, as far as there's innovations within the departments and stuff like that. So, de-escalating techniques that were developed by Mr. George Thompson. They was observing how the police officers and the profession were gaining compliance with different techniques and language that they were clearly defined as goals for the department, and then diffusing the conflicts and behaviors using those words, like I said, with dignity and respect, talk to somebody, so they will comply a little bit more non-aggressive against the police officer, but more, okay, yes sir, okay, here's my hands up, go ahead and take me back. But maybe not that easy, but the thing is, we have to try to do verbal talk with them with dignity and respect. Next slide. Now, the other LEAPS, so LEAPS. So the first thing we have to, this is 5 basic tools that they had in there. The first one is like L is for listen. So the first thing when the police officer go in and talk to an individual, the first thing you have to do is listen. Listen to the individuals when they're talking, because there's a lot of information going back in your head at that time. So you have to be able to listen to the person that is talking to you. Don't start interrupting them anytime they're talking and you're trying to say, hey, quiet, I'm not talking to you. You gotta start like de-escalating yourself with that. So let them people talk. So the first thing is listen. And then the second one is you have to emphasize, you have to empathize for the people. So the people think that you're in their favor, they like you and stuff like that. Show some empathy with them, so that way as a person you think, or they think that you understand what they're saying. Hopefully, I hope that you do, because if it's not, then we're in the same situation. So you don't understand what they're talking to you, so it's necessary for you to understand what the public or the person that you're arresting or the witnesses that they're giving you information. to get the right perspective for whatever information that you're getting from them. So the other word, which is the A, is ask. So once you're done with those perspectives and stuff like that, so now you're gonna start asking questions. So you have to ask questions so you understand and gaining information from the individual. You ask him like, okay, so how many people, you know, who, where, how, when, you know, all those things. So you have to understand, so because it's part of your job, you have to ask questions. So then the other thing is paraphrase. So you paraphrase, that way you kind of like, I said something and you kind of like repeat a little bit what I'm saying, so you know, you're kind of like being in the dialogue with them and being in the same sheet of music that we said. So and at the end you do a little summary, which is you actually you kind of brief everything that they tell you and wrote everything down. So this is kind of a way, you know, good way for approaching an opportunity to educate people that you're being a very, very understandable person. And that way there's not like, okay, well, the police officers came over here, but they're, you know, they were acting like crazy and then they had their guns out and stuff like that. So we have to start learning how to educate the people that they know that we're not like a bad individuals, but we're there for helping. Next slide. The other thing we have, it's with the public, the warrior's attitude effect, which is, you know, some police departments now, if you look at the uniform, they have so many things, it looks like they're going to war. Holy cow. So they got more things than I do in the Army. They got, holy shit, you got all this stuff. So you gotta make sure that, you know, you understand you're not in a war area. This is a non-war zone. This is a place where you, as a police officers, you know, people have to perceive that we are legitimate. We are, you know, legit police officers, that we're there not just like scaring people away, but we're not having any negative attitude with the police department. So, because all those things, what it creates is a lot of conflicts with them. You know, they put a lot of complaints, oh, this guys came over here and they took this person like this, like that. So we have to start, you know, incrementing more necessary support with the public, so that way we can, you know, increase in the just the way that we are a police officer, not like warriors attitude that have a bad effect with the public. Next slide. So, and part of this, I know we have now the guardian attitude, which is more into, you know, we are the protectors of the citizens. So the public, they have a little bit more trust with the, you know, the guardian attitude they have it versus the other warrior attitude, where, you know, the public demand that we respect them and that we treat them fair in a professional manner. And this is where we have that guardian attitude. So we have to, you know, make sure that we use a good judgment with them and self-control and de-escalating situation skills. So with that being said, all this, we have to start gaining all the compliances and respect from them when we use the force or excessive force that we're using when restraining any individuals. Next slide. So as part of the training changes, the same thing, there's a lot of updating training tools and methods that they're being used to avoid overreactions from police misconduct. So, and like I said, we talked about the de-escalating the force in different situations, that you have to be prepared for that. So when you're a police officer, like I said, you have to be prepared to be in real world situations. So, and you have to make decisions in a split of a second. So you're like, oh, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna do this and that? So you have to learn how to do that and trying to get into those situations without having any injuries or, you know, shut yourself or anything like that. So you have to learn how to conduct yourself as police officers when these situations arise. Next slide. Okay, so all these things are, that we use, all these tools, they are beneficial, but maybe they have a cost in there, but the cost has to be affected. That way, if some department, they don't have enough money for buying, good tools, like body cameras and stuff like that, or, things that they're required for police officers to do their job, then they have to start incorporating some kind of methods for, to get all the tools required for them to comply. The other thing is, there's a lot of scenarios that we have to deal with. Like I said, we deal with mental illness people. We have people that use drugs and different behaviors. So we have to start learning a little bit more about how to comply when we are treating those individuals in there too. Next slide. So the Washington State approach. And the police academies, they went to some changes. The main goal was that to serve and protect the individuals, the citizen, and being guardians of democracy instead of warriors. And then so we had to downgrade all that military boot camp mentality that we have when we're doing all the exercises, and being a little bit more submissive as far as when treating people humanely and respectfully. So that way that we can improve our public perception with, when we have situations where require detentions and arrest individuals in the public. Next slide. So they keep going with that. So there's a lot of risk factors and safety on the lives of the police officers. It's empirical that the members of the American Society, they suggest that there's different approaches that we have to take in the police department, and then they suggest that the warrior and the guardian. So we have to start adopting the one that is more good for the people, not just for the police officers, but that way they adopt different mentalities in being more tactical with that too. So all these things are, implications that they're very important as for the leadership in that. Next slide. Now talking, speaking of leadership, so the leadership, like I said, it's they have to start working in conjunction with with everyone else, within the department, because we as a subordinates, we've got to make sure that you understand how we feel, and not just like we have to understand how you feel as one of the because we're your subordinate and you're a leader, so we want to make sure that you understand how we conduct in our business as well. And that being said, if we have promotion opportunities within the department, so if I've been in the department for like 5 years and I was still being over there in the patrol, what's going on? Something's wrong. You gotta start talking with your patrol officers, and and ask them how do they feel. Is there anything that they feel that they're not being progressed for any reason? So the supervisors, they gotta start talking with the leadership, and if there's any issues that they have to be brought up to their attention, they have to be able to help with that, and treat everybody fair as far as women and minorities within the department. Next slide. So the other thing, when as far as recruiting purposes, we talked a little bit about the women and stuff like that before. So, but when we're talking about the on the police culture, so there's a lot of things that they required a lot of police force use. So the police officers, they are burned out. So we have to use this police officer because we didn't have anybody else to go and do the bit. So he's working overtime maybe like, I talked to some police officers who got like 15, 20 hours overtime, or, or more, so you can't burn out the police officers. They gotta have their own personal life as well. So, not just because, they are willing to do it, you're gonna burn them out. So you have to start, getting yourself as leadership, implementing other ways to, use other departments or other officers that they, you know, they're not on the same beat for over 24 hours because they need a break, they need a rest. So all those things, they have to be addressed to eliminate, all those factors and stuff like that. And then, so, it has to be a reform or something that has to be addressed to the police institution. They have to bring it up to the attention of the leadership so they can go in and start working on that to do the changes. Next slide. Now, talking about the recruiting and hire more women, of course, not just women, but in general, we have to hire minorities, because if we have certain individuals that, we have a predominant place or neighborhood that is, a black predominant neighborhood, you don't want to feel that you want to send like white guys or white police officers in there, or a Chinese police officer in there, because they just not going to trust them. So you got to start kind of showing a little, part of the cultural background. You got to send officers that they can understand how they are. So the black police officers versus Chinese police officers or Latino police officers, we understand our cultures. So if we send somebody else, maybe from India or stuff like that, so it's gonna be hard for him to understand how we, as a culture, as a, ethnicity, like, Latino. So we have a little bit more of, we could tend to be aggressive, in certain ways, but, we understand how we are. So sending with the right police officers to the right place. That way we create a good culture environment with the public, and then that way, as far as the women do, they have a little bit more of interest in being working as police officers, because they want to serve their own public, their own community. So, and anyway, next slide. So, and keep going with the leadership imperative. So the EPIC was ethical policing is courageous program that it was adopted by New Orleans Police Department. So the New Orleans Police Department was a high rate misconduct model for the police department. But then after all this was in effect, the EPIC, so it became one of the role models for the police department in the nation. So that is a good thing. So we have to, there's things that can change and everything in every department. So we can overcome to all the, the bad habits and stuff like that there is among police officers. So we can, we as leaders, we can avoid having troubles within, our institutions. Next slide. So the other thing that we were talking about when the tools, so we have the body worn camera, so the BWC. So I know in some departments it's a lot of money because they cost a lot. So, and I'm not saying that we have to provide one to each individual police officer, but this is how the public ones, that everyone, or if you're a police officer or sheriff, whoever you are, that it's more to prevent and having more being transparent with them. So in any event, so if we have any situation, that way we can see ourselves, how do we act with the people when we're using any force, and and someone is complaining that we use police brutality, we can say, well, we got our camera, so we can see that it wasn't actually what they were talking about. So in that event, so the people would be more supported, and then they know that the videos and dissemination to that through the media is important as well. like I said, the media, sometimes they pass more information than what it is, but we as, police officers, we have to understand that, it's part of our job, we're in the public and we're protecting them. Next slide. So, as a leadership, the perception of the leadership of the body cameras is that there's a study being conducted, but some of them they're support the body camera, some other ones they don't, because they feel that the police officers are being pressured to use the camera more often, and then if you don't use the camera, then they tend to have charges against you because there's nothing that it can back you up. It's your word and their word against the media. So, and that can be potential use of videos, and media sometimes they're not really getting the right story to the people. So anyway, with that being said, next slide. So all the things that we discussed about the body cameras and stuff like that, so they have to be addressed with the leadership. They have to be a way that they can say, well, maybe our department has enough money so we can get the cameras for our department. If it's not, maybe they can have to talk to the the federal government and see if they can give them some funds or stuff like that for them, so they can incorporate the cameras in the police officers. So, and having those cameras actually will prevent some officers from acting in a way that will discriminate the individuals when they're being arrested. So, and that will improve more good relationship with the community and as a whole with the all the citizens in here. Next slide. So, in speaking of the tools and stuff like that, so there's non-lethal methods that we use and tactics. So we have tasers. The tasers are it's more like an alternative, instead of using the force, so we can just like use the taser. We shoot the taser on you and you're gonna go into the ground. So that will make us less vulnerable to getting a stab or something like that, where some individuals when we're arresting them. So all this, they have to enhance the protection of the citizens and the officers as well. So, but when we have inexperienced police officers that using the tasers for the first time, it might de-escalate situation or escalate situation depending how he feels. If he feels that it's not safe, he's just gonna go in and start tasing everyone. So we got times that we got officers that have tased other police officers because they were like scared. So they shot, and then all of a sudden, like, they shot the officer, and then he went to the ground. So all those things they have to comply. So they have to do a lot of good training in those things too before they use the taser. If I'm gonna give you a taser within the department, you have to know how to use it. You gotta get taser as well. You gotta get tased in order for you to use it. But same with the pepper spray. People, they don't understand that we have to go through a process where you have to get pepper spray in your eyes so you know how it feels when we use them with them too. So compliance and training, that way we get a lot of more public support from the citizens. Next slide. So, and then some of the other things that when we talk about leaps, we talk about EPIC programs, stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that within the department we have to investigate more into, like how we as police officers act when we, stop vehicles and stuff like that. So there's different techniques that we have to use before we start escalating to different uses of force. So all those are going to be necessary for all the police officers to understand how to get when they get into situations like that. Next slide. So the perspectives that we have as far as that what is being perceived, as in the nation. So how the citizens, how do they feel that, how do they feel right now with the police officers? If you talk to any individual, on the street and then ask him, so how do you feel? Do you feel like, police is, acting right? So this is what they said. They said that, we are unjustly stopped them. They fear that, that they don't really trust us because, we use a lot of excessive force with them, and then we don't treat them right. So with that being said, the leadership has to start, conducting all those community partnership programs with, to work with them, so to gain some more efforts with the community in the police department as well. That way we can implement some kind of way to educate ourselves as police officers and the public as the, our communities. That way, they feel that they have some respect from us. So, and then that we are, bringing all the concerns that they have to try to resolve the problems that our police officers have nowadays. So, all those, gender, religious, all those things are, very sensitive. So, it's necessary for, leaders to take action on this and start, like I said, getting into some kind of force matrix to get to comply, with our communities, doing policing and stuff like that, and have some, I don't know, some debates and stuff where, the public is welcome in there so they can have their own views, and maybe, they can listen a little bit more about how they feel with the police officers. Next slide. So, keeping with the leadership, so it's necessary to understand the behaviors that influence other police officers. So implementing all those policies and regulations for the police department, meetings and stuff like that, it helps a lot for being transparent with the community. So we have to make sure that they understand that the law enforcement, we're a legitimate institution where we do cooperate with them, and then all we need from them is their support. So we have to have some kind of climate of, of feeling that we're doing our jobs and that they are backing up all the time. So if we don't have the backup from the public, we're not really doing our jobs. Next slide. So in summation right here, so a little summary from everything. So the law enforcement, we have to start eliminating the use of force and police brutality with the individuals. So more training, more training all the time, because if you don't train, you don't get good at it. So in the Army we train, so you get good at it. So you have to get more trained and more educational sources for police officers, so they can feel that they're being trained on things that they're new for them, like using the pepper spray or new tools that they came out for different departments, the baton, stuff like that. I know some departments, they probably don't use them, but if we use the baton and hit somebody with that, we can actually, rip their hair off or broke his arm or something like that. So we have to make sure that we understand how to use those tools. And so training, evaluating how we do things, how we are conducting our business as police officers. That way we can set positive examples, within the same department, because we have some good policies and regulations that, they expect that we're doing good performance and accountability for our actions as police officers, and being more transparent with the public. Next slide. So all those changes, like I said, it's a path so we can gain more public trust and support for for us as an institution, to serve the public. So we have to understand all those situations that we had before, how to use the de-escalating excessive force. So it's necessary for all of us to be in the same sheet of music with the public, so they can gain, we can gain their respect, and they can get our respect as well, because it's, you know, you need two to tango, so we have to work together. So there's one saying and quote from that we had. It said, "We know that the most deadly weapon we carry is not 45 millimeter or 9 millimeter. In fact, is your tongue, is the CAPSTONE." So one sentence that you said can get you in trouble. So you can get sued. You don't need to use your weapon. Just the way that you talk to people can get you in trouble. So with that being said, this is, you know, very important. So watch what you said, listen, obey, and respect the public. That way, and follow all the regulations that be imposed in your department to avoid, you know, all the lawsuits and stuff like that from the public. Next slide. So, and this concludes actually my presentation. So I appreciate everyone over here for listening to this. Thank you very much for Ms. Teresa, Mary, and Roberta, and Dr. Renzi. Have a good day. Thank you.